It's a very basic question. If the Labour Party is not for lifting children out of poverty, then what exactly is the Labour Party for? Now, Labour was founded 124 years ago to abolish hardship. It has always had different factions and wings and ideologies, but if the whole thing was supposed to hang together, then abolishing hardship and struggle was sort of it, even if there were disagreements, often strong disagreements about how to get there. Well, who can say that anymore? Keir Starmer has just suspended 7 of his own MPs. Why? Because they voted to scrap a conservative policy devised by George Osborne, which drives hundreds of thousands of kids in this country into poverty or further into hardship. That's what this is all about. Now, we will be told, and we are being told, no, it's because they voted for a Scottish National Party amendment to the King's Speech to scrap the 2-child benefit limit, which, of course, was imposed by George Osborne. Well, let me speak plainly to you. This is bollocks. Even Tony Blair didn't come anywhere close to being this authoritarian. There is no precedent in the Labour Party for a very, very long time, and certainly not on this scale, for just removing the whip, for having the temerity to disagree with the leadership of the party. Now, this is all being spun by client journalists, for example, at the BBC, as a sign of strength. It is no such thing. It's weakness. A leader who tries to stamp out all dissent is a leader who is deep down feeble. Do you look back at Boris Johnson's purge of his MPs over Brexit as an act which foreshadows his glorious success as Prime Minister of this country, or his eventual failure? This paints in primary colours an obvious fact that Starmer's slogan of choice, country before party, is a deceitful nonsense. Starmer knows that a policy devised by George Osborne to prevent parents from claiming benefits for a 3rd or 4th kid is cruel and fails on its own supposed terms. When he stood for leader, he promised to scrap the limit. He has suspended 7 of his own MPs for voting for his own leadership commitment. Now, after all, it imposes poverty on 250,000 children. It drives another 800,000 further into poverty. 57% of the families affected are working households, like the carers and the supermarket workers and the cleaners who were applauded by politicians on porches and balconies during the pandemic. The research finds it does not increase employment levels and may actually make it harder to find work. It also has no impact on family size, according to the research. Now, charities have identified it as one of the single biggest generators of poverty in Britain. Starmer is fully aware that Osborne devised this policy because the then Chancellor thought he could torture the Labour opposition by stoking public hostility towards a Victorian caricature of this over-deserving, over-breeding poor. Family circumstances change. People move in and out of poverty. People can have a family and then move into hardship. All of that is just intentionally scrubbed from a conversation defined by cruelty, deceit and prejudice. And in any case, what kind of decent society punishes children for choices they have no control over? In Britain in 2024, kids are turning up to schools with bowed legs and heart murmurs because of malnourishment. How did we descend to this point? Well, a vast cost is also imposed, not just on the children, but on society, because the scarring effect of poverty produces lasting lower employment levels and productivity. Starmer knew this. He knew this when he told the BBC almost exactly a year ago that he would retain this malign Tory policy. He made that commitment, though, to sound tough. Now, contrast with how he genuflects before powerful interests like the Murdoch empire. Indeed, this week it was reported that Starmer's team had met with the Murdoch empire and agreed not to pursue Leveson, that is looking at press standards, in exchange for receiving the endorsements of the Sun and Sunday Times newspaper. Standing up to the poor, kneeling before the rich. Now, it is a waste of invective to denounce at length a politician who defines his machismo by sticking it to impoverished children. Those words are damning enough. Starmer decided he could gain partisan advantage. Well, that's what he thought, rather than fix an injustice afflicting his own country. That's why he made that pledge. Party first, country second. Or rather, to be specific, playing politics with the lives of our most vulnerable children. Now, the Labour MPs who took this stand are John McDonnell, the former Shadow Chancellor, Richard Bergen, Rebecca Long-Bailey, Apsana Begum, Imran Hussain, Ian Byrne, and Zara Sultana. Let's just listen now to Zara on Good Morning Britain.
For me, taking a stand against child poverty, one of the biggest scourges in the country, which affects 4.3 million children, is something that I'm very proud to have stood my ground on. I think the child benefit cap, alongside 11 Labour Party affiliated unions, the TUC, which represents 6 million workers, Gordon Brown, the Archbishop of Canterbury, even Keir Starmer in his 2020 leadership pitch, we all think that it should be scrapped, and that's what we voted on yesterday.
He's not messing about, is he? Your boss?
Well, the whip was withdrawn, and there's a process which will take 6 months, and in that time, I hope to continue to stand by my principles and see that whip restored in due course.
Well, you should be proud of yourself, Zara. Stand tall. You're on the right side of history. You upheld your party's best traditions. Those who suspended you desecrated those traditions. Now look, the dead behind the eyes hacks who now run the Labour Party have undoubtedly whipped themselves into a testosterone-fueled frenzy. This was an opportunity to clobber the left, and they took it. Imagine the sort of people who prioritise factional score settling over the hungry bellies of little kids. Poverty is a form of violence, and in this case, we're discussing that violence being imposed on children. These 7 MPs marched through those voting lobbies to help kids. That's what they did. The welfare of children was the last thing on the mind of those who suspended them. Yeah, sure, under massive pressure, Labour may well in time U-turn over this. They're claiming they need to assess the evidence when all the evidence they need is already there. Every single child poverty charity speaks from the same hymn sheet. It's a lie to suggest otherwise. What this underlines is that a government without a political core, a government with no soul, is certainly not a government driven by what is best for those people Labour was founded to represent in the first place. Sure, these people just respond, we got our landslide, did we not? We rule. Sure, you did, and you do. Thanks to the vagaries of our electoral system, you got your landslide. But you won just a third of the vote on the lowest turnout in British democratic history. So let's not confuse that for enthusiasm. There is no enthusiasm for you. And as you have no meaningful answers to the crises and challenges in developing this nation, my view is that enthusiasm is not going to grow. And this is the hubris. The Tories destroyed themselves more comprehensively than any political party in history. Even before you were in power, though, you were losing support to independents of the Green Party. That didn't happen to Tony Blair in 1997, did it? Starmer's polling way below where Blair was, both before and after he became Prime Minister. And the country wasn't a complete mess in the way it is today. I don't know. Do you think you're going to walk on water? The Green Party are second place behind Labour in dozens of seats. And those independent candidates up against massive party machines, in some cases overturned whopping big majorities. Wes Streeting, the heir apparent to Starmer, he was nearly defeated by a young 23-year-old, incredibly charismatic British Palestinian, Liam Mohammed. I don't know. Maybe you think in government you'll just become hugely more popular, especially as you continue behaving like this. And all of that will just go away. We'll see. What I would say is to those who weren't clear before, Starmer's Labour has now told you who they really are over and over and over again. It's time to believe them. This is who they are. And they're only going to get worse. If you're someone who believes in basic principles like a wealthy society being able to provide for its citizens, that wealth and power should be fairly distributed, that we should uphold human rights at home and abroad, then these people have nothing but contempt for you. It would be an act of incredible self-harm and show a huge lack of self-respect if you continue to offer your support for those who despise everything that you believe in. Please like and subscribe. Do leave your comments. Help keep the show on the road as ever at patreon.com/Andrew84. Listen to the podcast. Speak to you soon.